Today, we would like to welcome Monica Figueroa, who is the Director of Organizational Development and Library Human Resources at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill University Libraries. A native of Ann Arbor, Michigan, Monica earned her MS in Library and Information Science from Syracuse University in 2014, after having earned an MA in Ethnomusicology from the University of Chicago in 2011, and a Bachelor of Music in Horn Performance from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2006. This workshop will consist of a brief presentation and then hands-on portion with breakout conversations, hands-on exercises, and a debriefing with speakers and participants.
So we hope that all participants will feel comfortable sharing and that you'll walk away with strategies, confidence, and of course, a wider network of people that will help you take the lead in these conversations around salaries and budgets. Please stay till the end of the workshop to enter to win a $50 gift card from bookshop.org, an online bookstore that supports local independent bookstores. And now we will turn it over to Monica.
Thank you so much, Azalea and Amalia, for that introduction. So I am going to share my screen. I have some slides that I will get into. Okay, so thank you for signing up to be a part of this workshop. I'm excited to talk with y'all this afternoon about salary negotiations. So let me do a sort of roadmap for our time together. I'll give a little introduction, talk a little bit more about myself and how I have gotten to be in the position that I'm in right now. We'll walk through an individual exercise that'll be sort of like a grounding exercise for us. And then I want to go through a few sort of salary negotiation guideposts that I have that I think about from like a leadership standpoint and also personally. We have a small group exercise where we'll go through some scenarios that I've come up with and think through how you might build a script. If you were in that situation and you needed to walk into a salary negotiation. We'll come back to a group discussion, and then we'll sort of move into our Q&A session. All right, so I'll stick on this slide for my introduction because I don't have an introductory slide, but I do want to say that I am in no way an expert on like salary negotiation tactics. I don't even know if before this current role that I'm in, if I've ever really been successful in salary negotiation. I do think that is something that you learn over time, that you grow more confident in doing, that you really have that self-advocacy behind you. So I'll talk about how I sort of have arrived at being the Director of Organizational Development and Library Human Resources. And that perspective is really the one that I'm bringing to this workshop, and that I hope that I can sort of give you like a behind the scenes look at the way that, you know, sort of higher up admin think about salary negotiation and compensation. So Amalia and Azalea, they read my bio, and I did a lot of music. So I started in libraries as a music cataloging librarian, and that helped to bridge my music background, my 2 degrees in horn performance and then also ethnomusicology. And I have some great colleagues in the Music Library Association, and I really enjoyed my time there. But I also knew that I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more in academic libraries. I wanted to be a part of leadership. I wanted to be a part of those conversations at a higher level. And over time, I was sort of asked to lead, starting with committee work and then going up to special projects that had larger implications. And then I sort of stepped into a role that was looking at diversity and inclusion and equity broadly for the libraries, and how you think about that strategically. During the pandemic, our head of HR left for another role, and I was asked to step in as interim head of library HR at UNC. And it was something that I wasn't quite sure I wanted to do. You know, there's always this tension with HR, right? But I know that HR can do good. And that is why I'm still doing this today, and quite happy to have been recently appointed in this new role for the university libraries. I have to say, when I was in sort of talks about this role, I was asked about, you know, advocating for myself, and how do I do that? And what does salary look like? And it was in this moment that I really felt like I stepped up, and I was confident, and I knew what I wanted, and I had the information. I did the research, and I felt like I could really advocate for myself in that conversation. And so what I hope you all get out of this workshop together today is a step, you know, going a little bit further in that those steps towards feeling like you can advocate for yourself in conversations around salary. They are hard, they're uncomfortable, but if we come to those conversations with the knowledge and the research, and really trusting in our confidence and in our abilities and the value that we bring to an organization, I really think that helps. So, all right, why don't we get into things? Let us move to this individual exercise and discussion. So this is sort of like a 3 things exercise. I want you to grab a piece of paper and something to write with. That could also just be your computer and a sticky note or a notepad. And reflect on the following question. So what 3 things would make your life better right now in this moment? You can think big or small. If you're thinking about a long-term thing, that could be a part of it too. It could be short-term. It could be professional. It could be personal. I want you to jot down your thoughts, and if you're comfortable, we'll come back and share with the group. So I'll give y'all about 5 minutes to think through that question and reflect, and then we'll come back. I'll go to our next slide here. So before we get into our scenario exercise and script building, I wanted to talk through a few salary negotiation guideposts that I sort of think about personally, but then also from sort of like a leadership standpoint and HR professional standpoint. So thinking about your value, I have this note taped to my computer, and it says value yourself. And my partner gave it to me a while ago, and I put a piece of tape on there, and I've left it on my computer, and I look at that every day, and this sort of gets at this first point of assess your value, right? So thinking about, from an organizational mindset, thinking about the organization as a whole, assess everything that you bring, right? How, you know, like, what is it that your role is asking you to do, but also just you in general, what you bring to the organization. I like to suggest that we remember that, you know, in thinking about this, we are all sort of supporting members in a very large cast of characters, right? And I think that this is important to think about from a leadership standpoint, and that when salary negotiations come up, or you're having these sort of difficult conversations around compensation, oftentimes leadership is sort of thinking about it in relation to other people within the organization, right? And so while we want to go into those conversations being the main character, like, this is about us, we know who we are, and we are advocating for ourselves, we also have to put that into context and put it into the context that the people for whom you're having these conversations with, that's the context that they have, right? And so always thinking about what your role is and how you play that role. Also leading with confidence. I think that is really important. And especially as BIPOC folk in organizations that may also be largely white, right? How do we lead with confidence? How can we always be confident in our ability to do the work that we do, and to advocate for ourselves and advocate for what we need to thrive, to survive, to advance, if that is what we want. And I think it's really important to feel confident in that. And it takes practice, right? And so I think that this next exercise in building a script and, practicing that conversation, that's really important. And that is similar to how you would practice a presentation or a job interview presentation, right? You want to go into that situation feeling confident in yourself and feeling confident in your ability to show yourself, to advocate for yourself. And so that, I always want us to keep that in mind, to lead with confidence. And the last one is about your limits. I think this is really important. And I think that this has come up a lot during the pandemic when we were forced to sort of, vacate our normal work environments. A lot of us were, and we brought work home, and a lot of us are still in a hybrid work environment, and we're constantly feeling asked to do more, to do it for longer hours, to maybe work over the weekend. And that's not great, right? So how do we know our limits? And how can we always be sure that our limits are not being overreached, right? So I say be sure about what your limits are for both the role that you are in within an organization or the one that you're hoping to get into, and what that organization is asking of you. If you are in a work situation where you are being asked to work over the amount of hours that you are being paid for, then maybe that's not the best situation to be in, right? If you are asked to take on more work than what you are being compensated for, maybe that is also not the best situation, right? So knowing what your limits are and being clear about them and being clear that you are not going to go over those limits unless these things are met, I think that is a good starting point. Okay, so I want us to move into our scenario building time. It's 3:30. So I'm going to go through each of the scenarios. I'll read them on the screen, and then we'll go into breakout rooms. And I have a Google folder, a Google Drive that I'll share with y'all in the chat. And each scenario number will be associated with a breakout room. There's 5 scenarios. So why don't we dive into that? Unless y'all have any questions about these guideposts, I'm happy to answer those right now, if there are any initial questions, or we can save them until the end. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat. I'm gonna move on here. All right, so our small group exercise. So in your breakout room, I would like for you to discuss your room's assigned scenario. So in doing that, have a conversation, meet some folks, maybe meet some folks you haven't met before. Draft a script and or talking points for a negotiation conversation. Think about what are the most crucial points that you need to discuss in dealing with whatever situation you are about to encounter. Ideally, we'll come back to the large group prepared to share out and sort of discuss some of what you discussed in your breakout rooms. So to go through the scenarios, this is scenario 1. It says, congratulations. You are the selected finalist for a position you recently interviewed for. They provide you with a competitive salary offer, but the institution is geographically quite far from your current living situation, and they did not mention a relocation package. How would you negotiate for what you need? Okay. Your current employer has asked you to take on more responsibilities, including supervising 2 additional direct reports and serving as team lead for a new program. You are eager to take on this leadership role in your organization, but a new higher salary was not discussed. And you have reservations about the lack of compensation associated with this additional responsibility. How would you advocate for yourself? So I'm curious to hear what folks have for that one. All right. So scenario 3 says, well done. After interviewing for a position at a nearby institution, you are offered the role. During the interview process, you learn more about the institution and realize it doesn't seem like the place for you. You are keen to use this offer as leverage for more money or leadership opportunities at your current institution. How do you approach the situation? So this could go either way, right? It does say for money or for leadership opportunities. So that one can be open. All right, our 4th one. Due to the departure of a colleague, you have been serving in an interim leadership role for the past 2 years, for which your institution has been paying you a stipend. Your institution would now like you to take on this role permanently, but you suspect that the salary offer associated with the permanent appointment is far below what other department heads in your organization make. How would you negotiate for the salary you want? This one is interesting, right? It sort of is asking you to go outside of, your role, really think about that cast of characters. You're, as like a supporting role, right? And so you're seeing perhaps that other department heads are making more. How do you have that conversation knowing this information? I also understand that there might be some differences between private and public institutions, and that a lot of state public institutions, that salary data is made public to anyone. And for private institutions, that may not be the case. And so you may have to be talking with other people about that. And how do you have that conversation with your colleagues? So those are some things that can come up in your conversation. And the final scenario, you recently advocated for yourself in a salary negotiation conversation with a prospective employer. The salary they offer is competitive, but you ask for an additional 5% due to the higher cost of living in the area. Unfortunately, they turned down your request, but you know this is the right move for you and your career. How do you respond knowing that you need more assurance of financial support and career development?